This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am very honored to be with Drew Phillips, Senior Systems Integration Engineer at MXD in Chicago. Welcome to the show, Drew.
Thanks, Noah. Happy to be here.
I'm really honored to have you. Recently, I heard a podcast talking about cybersecurity, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. And so I sought MXD out to give us a good scoop. Tell us real quick what MXD is. What does it stand for? What do you guys do, et cetera?
Absolutely. So MXD stands for Manufacturing Times Design. We are one of the Manufacturing USA institutes across the U.S. It's a number of institutes who have been stood up through public-private partnerships in order to enhance manufacturing in the U.S. So we've been open since 2014. We've been known as MXD since 2019. And our main tenets are digital manufacturing. So we are the Digital Manufacturing Institute, really trying to help U.S. manufacturers get those Industry 4.0 and future capabilities into their operations, help them innovate and enhance their operations. As a part of that, we are also the National Center for Cybersecurity and Manufacturing. And
that's a lot what you focus on then. Cybersecurity.
Absolutely. Yep. It's one of our main tenets. So like say helping our nation's manufacturers secure their operations and their facilities, their data, their equipment, all of those things. And then workforce development. So not only getting skilled workers into shops, for whether that's running machines, aggregating data, but also, like say, getting those skilled cybersecurity personnel into those shops as well.
So, okay, this is a little more crazy than most cybersecurity stuff, but I thought it was really cool. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts recently. It's called American Innovations, and they had a show about something called Stuxnet, which is related to cyber terrorism as connected to manufacturing. But this is kind of what got my brain going on it. And Drew actually can explain it better than me. Tell me what Stuxnet is, and then we're gonna kind of work this right into the interview about cybersecurity.
Absolutely. So Stuxnet, the most famous or infamous event with Stuxnet is around 2010. Stuxnet is a malware, a computer virus that is believed to be responsible for targeting and attacking a number of centrifuges in an Iranian nuclear facility.
So it was designed by the good guys.
Nobody has actually claimed credit for it, even though it's been 12 years or so. But there's certainly debate as to who it benefits the most, right?
So people said it was maybe like the U.S. and Israel kind of.
The things that I have read have suggested that it had to have been done by a cyber superpower, whoever that may be. So there's certainly been a lot of insinuation and assumption and instigation that the U.S. and
who are the cyber
Israel,
superpowers? U.S., Israel, Russia, Ukraine,
China.
Yeah.
Most of the big countries. Your U.S., your U.K., your China. I believe those would be considered your cyber superpowers. But yeah, basically they, what happened is this, this virus, basically once it was introduced to the facility, it actually impacted the PLCs that controlled the centrifuges in this facility, and they impacted them in such a way that it changed the speeds at which they rotate, and was actually like say, believed to be responsible for damaging and taking out of commission a number of centrifuges in that facility. And the code, to this day is still out in the world. So, these types of attacks are certainly possible at non-nuclear refining facilities.
So correct me if I'm wrong, kind of like the development in this thing was that it was a virus that was attacking PLCs, not just like regular computers. And that was a difference in it. It was controlling machine tools, or were there viruses like that before this?
So to my knowledge, and I'll certainly can get more history, but to my knowledge, this is kind of one of the first certainly high visibility types of viruses that I believe it was introduced initially on this facility's IT network, on their computers some way, but their equipment was hooked up to their IT network so that they could monitor, how these machines are running, because like say these refineries, they care very much at what RPM these machines are running at and for how long. So they were constantly looking at that data. And to my knowledge, they basically this malware once onto the host system,
just kind of slithered its way from the system into the machines.
Correct. Yeah, it was able to get from the computers onto the machines, and then basically the hackers were able to expose a vulnerability on these PLCs to, like say, go in and actually change the, like say, the frequency at which these things were running in such a manner that it was able to actually damage these machines.
So theoretically, somebody in Russia could go, if they had, the same kind of virus, they could go and infiltrate CNC lathe making ammunition. Or
if you think about it, if you're a precision machining company, you've got a number of CNCs, it would be possible for a cyber criminal to, try to introduce a malicious software onto your network to get to your lathe, to your CNC. And then, while you've got a piece in work, they could mess with the RPMs of your lathe. They could mess with your axis values. They could turn off the coolant. All these different kind of things that they could do if they were able to get in to your network and, like say, actually have access to those PLCs. So that could take your machine down. That could potentially do damage to, your employees, depending on what happens, right?
No, it's really crazy. And you said the virus is still out there.
It's like they say, once you put something on the internet, it's there forever. These types of software, once they've been introduced into the world, people can go, people have gone and looked at that code and try to adapt it to whatever means they're seeking.
So on the dark web, you could maybe buy this type of code and then have it in your arsenal.
Like say the lengths that some cyber criminals will go to either just inflict damage upon people, or try to get money by either causing harm to your infrastructure, or, like say, taking your data and, with using like a ransomware type of event.
So now it's okay. This is like extreme, crazy stuff, but cyber attacks are, it is a huge problem for manufacturers, worldwide. So let's go into that now. This is one of the largest threats of cybersecurity. This is the biggest one, manufacturing companies.
So manufacturing is actually the largest industry impacted by cyber attacks. It's actually more cyber attacks now are targeted at manufacturing than, say, the banking industry.
That's crazy. Why? Are the banks more protected, so they're going after manufacturing companies?
The whys, I'm sure there's a ton of different whys, but just kind of put it in perspective. In 2019, manufacturing was number 10. So like say that's just how much it has risen.
2019?
Yes.
It was number 10?
Yep. We've gone from 10 to 1 in just a matter of a couple of years. And the number of cyber attacks are expected to double by 2025.
Why is so you don't know why manufacturing has surpassed banking?
There's a few reasons, right? So certainly banking is doing a lot to protect their customers. That's not going to stop criminals, for instance, but for a number of reasons. So manufacturing, one, it is now easier to steal intellectual property from manufacturing than ever before. It used to be, just a matter of years ago, in order to actually steal intellectual property from a manufacturer, you actually had to go into an office, get into a locked cabinet, steal a bunch of papers and then get out the door, right? If you wanted to get drawings or designs or, information about the machine, things like that. But as manufacturers have gone more digital,
yes,
with not only the actual design process of parts, so you've got all these model-based design and engineering going on with technical data packages, but also just like say with how companies are doing their business, the exposure is much higher now.
For instance, sorry to interrupt. I've done some interviews with somebody, there are these companies that people just send in a print and then they, automatically get bids for it.
Yep.
This is the kind of stuff that's causing all of the attacks, just that people are, I'm sure if you talk to these companies, they would say, oh, well, we're really protected,
Well, certainly you've got, a few things, obviously in like today's, on-demand economy, with 2-day ship times for a lot of parts, people want that speed, to get that speed. There's a lot going on digital, even for government programs. A lot of times now, the government is requiring technical data packages for, solutions providers to be digital, as opposed to used to be, you had to turn in a stack of drawings. So like say just the amount of things that have gone digital, not only for ease of communication and for use, like say you can get a lot more data off of a 3D model, than in much faster than say, having to look through like a 5-page print of a part that only shows you so many different views, right? And so many different dimensions. But like say, it's just also kind of increased that exposure. And then too, kind of in terms of the way that we just communicate, as an economy, you've got a lot of manufacturers whose supply chains are stretched across the country, across the world. So, they're dependent on that data communication.
Has COVID-19 caused more of this too, because everybody's trying to communicate remotely?
I'm sure it certainly has an impact on it. Like I said, I know certainly a lot of bad actors are able to capitalize sometimes on, the fact that maybe people haven't met face to face, or certainly in a while. There have been a lot of phishing attacks that happen where these bad actors go in and try to get you to click on a link that you think, looks real enough. One of the big examples is, you get fake UPS emails or, some other like a package has been delivered, check the tracking. And it's just a link. And if you're not thinking about it, or if you're like, oh, I think I had something due today, you go and click on it without thinking. And all of a sudden, maybe now you've introduced a malicious actor onto your system. Crazy.
Okay. So we've talked about some of the things that are vulnerable. Intellectual property, that's huge. Somebody takes your intellectual property, they could go and sell it to somebody else on the dark web, or
like say a lot of times you've got ransomware is a big thing. Like say they hold your intellectual property hostage until you give them some amount of money.
So when I was talking to one guy yesterday, was a fan of the podcast actually, and I said, "Oh, I'm interviewing this guy in cybersecurity," and he said, "Oh, we're really paying a lot of attention to that." And I said, "Well, do you guys have like a little stockpile of Bitcoin ready in case they're holding it for ransom? Do you recommend that to people to have a little bit of Bitcoin available to send over to get it back?"
I wouldn't recommend that personally.
Do some people say that? Do some consultants say that?
I've never heard it from a consultant. I have heard a few people just casually, in conversation say like, well, we've looked at this Bitcoin thing, and
is that how? Is it like you hear in the news or in the movies? Do they usually want to be paid in crypto?
The few folks that I know that have been impacted by something like a ransomware typically like those cryptocurrencies because they are much harder to trace. And like say, that's just kind of that's been the MO of criminals in the past. I don't know if that's necessarily still.
So would it be Bitcoin, or would it be Bitcoin, or would it be more like one of those more under the radar ones like Zcash or Monero?
I couldn't even begin to say. I can't say that I follow crypto that that closely.
Yeah, I'm all acting like I know what I'm talking about. I don't really. Just have gambled a little bit on it. So, okay. So we've got ransomware, we've got intellectual property, we've got crazy stuff like Stuxnet, never know. Anything else that we need to watch out for?
Like say, certainly, there are different, kind of threat vectors, we call them for malicious actors to attack. So, like say you have those phishing attacks, like say people just trying to get into your network through clicking on links. We have folks who, are just out there trying to get into different passwords. So, just trying to attack you that way.
What about identity theft? What about that?
It's still certainly an issue. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Identity theft is up there. And then, you still have people out like leaving USBs in parking lots, trying to get you to plug in a USB to your system to introduce some malicious, like say, software. The ways.
Yeah. What are the methods? What are the methods they do? So there's phishing with an email. We get that kind of crap all the time.
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of outside attacks. Like say that's people just trying to get into your system from the outside. So like say phishing attacks, you've got like say people just trying to, leave a piece of infected hardware out for you to introduce to your system, like say. So they would,
people, not that people use thumb drives much anymore, but
people still will go, like say, leave a thumb drive in a parking lot, hoping that someone will just go plug it in their computer.
That works.
I don't know how effective it is. Certainly, in our expertise, we always say, if you find one, don't use it. But it's certainly still something that happens. Hopefully now to this, I would hope to this point that most people should know, not to use something like that. But like I said, there's always a person who just, not thinking about it, like, oh, free thumb drive.
Okay. One thing, this guy I was talking to, he said that one thing he hears about is people get infiltrated by a virus and then it doesn't do anything. Like it'll just chill out there for a couple months before anything happens. And then there's a lot of trouble. You know what I'm talking about?
That's certainly a possibility. Like say there are, there are viruses that get in and they stay kind of latent, almost like a virus in a human. They might sit dormant for a period of time before actually doing whatever it is they're intended to do, whether that's because the person behind it is taking the time to either, find the most vulnerable thing to go after, or if they're looking for a particular, like say, piece of intellectual property, or like say, if they're just trying to take the time to, cause doubt, I guess, to make it less easily determinable, like when that virus was introduced onto the system. Like say the folks who are behind this are usually very smart.
Yeah. Yeah. Is blockchain something that is useful for stopping some of this stuff from happening? Like I interviewed a guy a long time ago who talked about sending like designs on blockchain for 3D printing, et cetera. Would that be something useful for people to use in their operation?
I would actually have to get back to you on that. I am not that up to date on blockchain myself.
Okay.
But it's certainly something I can get back to you on.
Awesome.
I don't want to tell you something that's wrong.
No, don't. I mean, I want to know now, what are the stuff that you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess
that's obviously the next step. How do you guys help prevent it? How do you guys help, when something happens, solve the problem, et cetera? So give me, what you guys do.
So there's kind of two ways to think about cybersecurity in terms of its impact to you and your business. There's really kind of cybersecurity as a best practice, and then there's cybersecurity for compliance. So like cybersecurity as a best practice is one of the things that we certainly preach. And we like to give a lot of examples of what you can do and some of the tools that are out there for you. So for example, NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, has what they call their CSF, their cybersecurity framework. And that is kind of a very basic kind of introduction to cybersecurity. It's really got 5 tenets. It's identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And it kind of goes through some of the different things you should do to kind of implement those. Basically the way it goes is, you can't protect what's on your system if you don't know what's there. And then once you are able to identify, everything in your facility, you can then start to go and protect it, looking for different solutions to do something like that. One of the big things is like, say, actually being able to detect a cyber attack. That's actually one of the harder things to do, and actually one of the least done things,
which is why it's when it lays dormant, it could be.
Yeah. So actually, the World Economic Forum's 2020 Global Risk Report states that the rate of detection of an attack is as low as 0.05% in the U.S. 5 out of 10,000 times it's detected.
How often does it happen and people never know?
I don't have that number for you, but it's high.
I'm sure. Well, like identity theft and stuff like that.
Yeah. And like I say, the thing too is it's not necessarily, it might not even be a cyber attack to your company. It could be a cyber attack to a company in your supply chain could impact you, right? If you're building some assembly and you've got a supplier down the road from you making a piece that goes in, and all of a sudden they can't make parts. Now you can't make parts. So like I say, that's kind of part of it is that kind of criticality of manufacturing, right? Is probably another reason that these cyber criminals have started attacking, because like I say, it's just, you want to get your facility back up and running. I know a few years ago, I forget which year, I believe it was Nissan, Renault was hit with the WannaCry.
What's it called?
WannaCry. It was, I believe it was a type of ransomware. I can double check real quick, but WannaCry is kind of one of those viruses from a couple years ago that was going around for a while. It's a ransomware attack, and it hit multiple plants across multiple countries for Nissan and Renault, and stopped production. Like say, I believe it hit on a Friday, and I think they got back up and running on a Monday. I don't know how many hours were lost.
And that was ransomware.
And that was a ransomware, but like say they hit multiple plants across multiple countries.
So how much Bitcoin do you think they got from that?
I've seen estimates on, how much money was lost. Obviously they haven't come out to say how much, lost production or what have you. But like I say, the estimates that I've seen have been very large. There've been a lot of zeros. So like say that's part of it is, detecting is very crucial, because once you've detected it, you can actually, start to take action against that. So you can respond to that event by, taking your system, offline, by trying to, if any of your equipment has been impacted, if it started acting funny, like say, getting it back to where it was, like say, is that kind of crucial recovery piece. So like I say, it's kind of the cybersecurity framework from NIST is a very key and kind of foundational piece to cybersecurity.
This is stuff that you teach companies, instruct companies.
Absolutely. So actually, as part of our mission as the cybersecurity, like say, Center for Manufacturing, we have a few tools that we have on our website to help manufacturers. Obviously, anyone can always come in to our office. We love giving tours and talking to folks. But for those who just want to come in and, kind of get their feet wet, we even offer a virtual tour so that people can kind of see some of our demonstrations that we have on our floor. Say they can't make it to Chicago.
I've been there, and it's pretty interesting. We've got
I like working here, and we're always out on the floor doing different stuff. So like I said, we have that, so you can kind of go into some depth on some of our cybersecurity experiences that we have out on the floor. Like I say, sometimes it's hard to show cybersecurity. We also offer. Explain
what that's like, the experience.
Yeah. So actually, you'll see behind me is one of we call it our cyber box. It's just a tool that we've made here in house. A couple of folks on our team got a couple of patents for it that they're very proud of, that we can show different ways of, kind of those, certainly the first two portions of the NIST CSF. So, identifying and protecting. And so actually we have here, we've got a couple of computers, and in the electrical box in the center, we've got some PLCs, and these PLCs actually run just a couple of motors behind me, and we can actually simulate a hack on them, which attacks one and not the other. Well, I should say.
So this is more like the Stuxnet thing, where it's actually making
a little bit, yeah. So it's actually going against the PLCs themselves, and it appears to have logged me out, of course. But that's all right. I can get back in easy.
Maybe it was hacked.
It certainly seems that way sometimes.
I'm sure you guys have really good cybersecurity there, right?
We do. So actually, one of the things that we offer is, one of, as I said at the beginning, there's cybersecurity for a best practice. There's also cybersecurity for compliance. So in order to perform on a number of government projects, you need to be what's considered CMMC compliant. Mm-hmm. Which is the cybersecurity maturity model certification. And then basically it's kind of a directive from the government that is aimed at protecting a couple of different types of data. So federal contract information, also known as FCI, basically, information about the contract, what's delivered, when, those sorts of things. And then CUI, which is confidential unclassified information. It's information that's considered sensitive, but it's, not at that classified level of being, critical to national defense sort of a thing. But in order to do that, so like say, in order to actually perform on a certain number of government contracts, you need to meet this CMMC compliance method.
So this is where they're auditing you.
Correct. So it's actually a tiered model. So at the first level, it's a self-assessment. Then at a second level, there's a audit by a third party company. And then at the third level, you're actually being audited by folks from the government itself. But what we at MXD have done is actually released a playbook for our journey to CMMC level 1 compliance, because like say, it's one of those things that we want to share with other manufacturers on, here are the stumbling blocks that we ran into, here are some things to avoid. Here's some best practices, things like that. And this is a tool, like say, that we offer to help companies kind of get to that level of maturity when it comes to cybersecurity. And again, this is, just cybersecurity for compliance. And there's a number of different standards out there for cybersecurity. And unless you are a, kind of a cybersecurity engineer or other professional, a lot of these standards can be really confusing. So another service that we offer is we actually have a cybersecurity assessment that you can take with us, and it basically breaks down those really confusing standards into a number of questions about things that you may or may not be doing at your company currently. That way you can actually look at it and say, here are the things that I'm doing at my company right now. Is this meeting cybersecurity standards without, like, say, having to go through and do that translation yourself? So, most American manufacturers are small companies. They might not even have an IT department, let alone a cybersecurity department. So, we try to give folks an alternative to, bringing in those cybersecurity professionals if you can't afford that, or, bringing in a consultant.
Are you guys government funded?
So we are a public-private partnership. So we are government funded. We actually got a renewed 5-year grant just a couple years ago from the Department of Defense. But we offer a membership model. So like say we...
So you do have to pay to get your services.
Some of them. We do offer some free things.
So... like this company I was talking to yesterday, he was like consulting with IBM. Mm-hmm. Like, are you doing some of the same kind of stuff they would be doing? It's just they're like on the private side, or?
So we try not to really overlap, with some of the solutions that are out there. Like say, we exist to really bring folks together and to try to, like say, kind of push that innovation envelope rather than to provide necessarily solutions ourselves. So for instance, like say, we actually offer a cybersecurity marketplace that basically, you can go into our marketplace and say you're missing like 2-factor authentication services. And we can basically say, okay, well, here are some services that provide that 2-factor authentication for you. Like say, because we don't provide those.
Right. So you'll advise them, oh, you should try IBM or you should try X company.
Right. Yeah. We basically try to, on the one side, we try to get cybersecurity solution providers to work with us, so that way we get better understanding of the needs of the market, the solutions that are out there. And then, on the flip side, we try to get manufacturers in the door to, like say, shore up their operations by connecting them with the solutions that they might want or need. It's a nice little thing, like say, so that the marketplace is one of our newer offerings that we've been working on, like say, to try to, again, kind of break down the, like, here are the areas of cybersecurity kind of more generally, and then like say, kind of connecting those up with actual providers, again, rather than saying, oh, well, this standard has this requirement, and having to go down that chain. Right.
No, you hold people's hands through it and make it hopefully less complicated. And the missions of the company is to get people to, get off their ass and get safer, right?
Like say our whole deal is to help improve and innovate in American manufacturing. The Department of Defense, the reason we exist is because...
So your job isn't to go and convince people to get vaccinated against the computer viruses. You guys are...
we're a small company. It'd be tough to go to all the people. But, like say our big thing is to try to educate manufacturers on that return of investment. Like say cybersecurity is not a matter of if.
It's sort of like telling somebody to go get a flu shot, or, it's not going to happen to me. I'm
generally
strong.
Healthy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
like
then it's not until something happens to people do they get serious about it, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, and like say that's pretty similar because a lot of folks they say, well, I don't have the resources to deal with this right now, or it's not going to affect me.
What are they going to steal? What are they going to steal from me? I don't really have much to steal.
Right, but sadly, the way the world today, it's no longer a matter of if, it's more of a matter of when. So having plans in place for what to do when a cyber attack occurs, how to get your operation up and running again. As any shop will tell you, if you're not cutting chips, you're not making money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you yourself? Do you have like one password for yourself, or? I've been meaning to get one password for a while. My brother's is like, you got to get one password. What are the things that we should do as individuals?
Well, certainly as individuals, protecting passwords is key. Not sharing passwords between your work and your personal is definitely a big one.
Okay.
If you have, password 1, 2, 3 for both your work and your personal, if one gets attacked, the other could easily get attacked, right? Once that one password is known. Passwords that involve whatever it is. If it's a password for a particular service, if the name of that service is in the password, that's generally easier to hack. Or repeating patterns like say 1, 2, 3, or if you have to update your pattern going from password 1 to password 2, those sorts of things are generally frowned upon. It's nice to have a longer password with multiple characters, so uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters, passphrases are definitely usually recommended.
Two-factor authentication. Yeah.
Definitely two-factor authentication. I always get mad at it or frustrated at here at work because I've got two-factor authentication, like even for our SharePoint, and so I'll go from like my desktop to my laptop, but I also know that it's protecting me. So I get a couple of push notifications on my phone. What's the harm, right?
Yeah.
Just takes a couple extra seconds.
Are phones more likely to get attacked than computers?
I don't know if I would say that they themselves are, but certainly, your habits when you're using a computer versus a phone can be different. Personally, we have at our office, we actually run phishing exercises. So, we'll get sent out random emails throughout the month from kind of one of the training services that we use that are simulated phishing attacks. And I know that the same email that I get on my computer looks slightly different on my phone. And so if I have my email open on my phone, that email I am more susceptible to clicking on that link in that email on my phone than I am on my laptop, just because of the way it shows up, sort of a thing, if that makes sense. So, your habits as an individual, those are also something you need to be cognizant of. Because like say, these cyber criminals are just looking for that one moment of weakness, right? Or, that one time that you have a lapse of judgment, or it's been a really long day and you think, oh, I did order a package, those sorts of things where, sometimes you just get tired.
Yeah, it happened to me recently where it was something from Amazon and they're like, you have to log in order to change your password. And, and I did. And then like 10 seconds later, I was like, holy shit. And then I went into Amazon and changed my password for real.
Yep.
And it's probably, should we be changing our passwords all the time?
All the time, I would say no. if you have a strong password, typically, I'd have to look at the numbers again, but if you have like a 12 character password that has a uppercase, lowercase number and a special character for like a brute force attack where someone is just basically trying all sorts of different attacks to, break through your password. Like say if it's at least, 12 characters, has those multiple special characters. I want to say it's like it would take 10,000 years or, some very large magnitude number of years in order to break that password. So
it's got to be 12 though.
The longer the password, basically the higher,
sure,
the longer it takes. So, certainly there are plenty of places where they require, a short, or you can get away with a shorter password. There might be a service that says, oh, your password just has to be 8 characters and they don't really care what it is. But like say that kind of that 12 character limit, it could just like say really increases the difficulty for someone to break that password. And like say passphrases are usually recommended. They might not make sense to anyone but you. But that's what kind of makes them harder to do. And like I said, there are a number of
what do you mean by passphrase?
So a number of words that don't really make sense together. So like I've seen, examples might be like green ball sailboat. Like that doesn't mean anything, right? But, with, some underscores and some numbers and, uppercases and lower cases, that's all of a sudden a very secure password just because, those don't really, like say, mean anything to anybody.
Are you going to be at IMTS?
I will, yeah. So MXD will be at IMTS. We'll have a booth. I will be stopping by for at least part of it myself, and I'm going to try to, get some time on the floor to see all the other stuff. It'll actually be my first IMTS, so I'm really excited for it. Yeah.
No, it's fun. And it's funny when people are like, you going on IMTS? I'm like, yeah, might as well. I mean, I'm here.
It's right there.
Exactly. It's a 10-minute drive for me. That's fine.
Exactly.
It's weird when you hear people that are like, yeah, I'm coming from England to go there. And I'm like, oh, wow. Well, thank you so much. It was really fun. I think that people should be scared and need to be thinking about this stuff. Do you think that you wish you feel like you know too much? Like it's kind of scary to you because you know so much? Or do you block it out? Do you compartmentalize it and just
Well, I go back and forth. Like I say, I've worked in a number of industries in my career, in automotive. I worked in aerospace for a little while. And, you hear things, you learn things, you're like, huh, that's odd. I was in the automotive industry when the big airbag recall was going on. What was that? The Takata, I believe, like millions of cars were being recalled. And, you kind of think like, oh, we all did all this testing, but yet this still happened. So it's kind of one of those things where I am glad to be on this end of it so that, while you might learn things that are scary or unpleasant, at least you kind of also know that there are things you can do to minimize the damage, to prevent harm, things of that nature. While certainly there are things to be scared of, there's also plenty that you can do to protect yourself.